Webre, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Bob, and thank you, everyone, for being here in this amazing meeting house. And thank you, all of the founding fathers and mothers of Free Your Mind. I think this is a unique conference, both in the United States and in the world. Last night, Bob Tuskin and I and Jim Fetzer went over to the tavern across from the historic meeting house where we're staying, and had a long kind of conversation about the state of the body politic after the Boston Marathon false flag, and then had Bob Tuskin interviewed us, and in that house, and it really felt like this is so appropriate, coming together in Free Your Mind. And I don't think this is just a conference. I think it's a unique and crucial time for the body politic of the United States, which is under severe attack. I've just released a 10,000-word article with an embedded PowerPoint and many videos, which is up at exopolitics.com. And the title of it, to some it may be quite shocking, but I just want to say this. It's how the Obama fulfills the archetype of the deceiver, and how he must be exposed publicly. Because it's my perception that the entity that we know as Barack Hussein Obama is to friendly fascism. It's a concept we studied at Stanford Research Institute in the 70s when I was a futurist there and director of the extraterrestrial communication project under the Carter White House. Is that Barack Hussein Obama is to friendly fascism. We studied that as to what the United States would be undergoing now. Barack Hussein Obama is to friendly fascism what Adolf Hitler was to Nazism. And there's so many people who are under the spell, under the consensual trance that he is a benign leader here, whereas he is involved actively in the deconstruction of the Bill of Rights and the very social fabric of this country. And I hope that more and more will awake. Okay. And I just wanted to say that that is my own personal political statement that I just wanted to make at this time.
Thank you. Thank you.
This PowerPoint that I'm going to share, Dimensions, Ecology of the Multiverse, is the outgrowth of a request that I had from Oxford University Press, which is a division of Oxford University in England, even though that is the seat of New World Order, kind of the temple of the New World Order. It still has an ancient and noble tradition. And they approached me and asked me if I would write a book on extraterrestrials and the law. And when I tackled the project, I saw, wow, how do you get there from here? In other words, how can a third dimensional court acquire jurisdiction over a fifth dimensional defendant? When you think about it. So before even tackling that, I reviewed the subject and saw that there wasn't an adequate typology of intelligent civilizations on our planet. We simply had not developed it, at least in the public domain. And out of that exercise came the dimension-based typology of intelligent civilization, which I'm sharing with you today. And the book Dimensions, which is my first book since Exopolitics, which you will learn about today, is actually a time travel artifact. The CIA, using DARPA time travel technology, time traveled my book Exopolitics from at least 2005 back to at least 1971, where it was witnessed by 3 independent witnesses. And in 1971, I was taken down to a meeting with about 50 CIA agents. They had it, I thought I was just giving a speech on the environment, and they had in their possession a copy of my book, and they were just like goofing on me, you know, or time travel surveying me, Big Brother style. And so this is my first book since Exopolitics. It'll be out actually in early 2014. This is like a sneak preview. So I'm happy to bring it to you today here. In studying the dimensional ecology, we'll look at both the exopolitical dimensions and the spiritual dimensions of the dimensional ecology. By the exopolitical dimensions, I mean what we call the physical universe, what we experience as the physical universe here, where we have exopolitical relations among each other as we manifest in our physical bodies. And we do that through the science of exopolitics, the political science of the multiverse, the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. In my book, Exopolitics, I have a few copies there in the room back there, and it is a book that in fact defined that new science. And there are exopolitics chapters in over 50 countries. And since the book was first published in the year 2000, now over 50 or 60 countries have released their UFO files. So it was the publication of the book in the year 2000. There was an explosion in the number of countries that released their secret ET and UFO files. So I think of it as the monkey washing their yams, you know, on one island, and then it's kind of this is how paradigm shifts happen. It's something that's happening dimensionally. The other science that we use is parapsychology, and that is using scientific method to study psychic capacity, reincarnation, life after death, the interlife. That's the dimension, non-local dimension, where we go between lives. And the human soul, and the intelligent civilization, souls of spiritual beings, the spiritual dimension itself, which experimentally we have found out is the definition of God, and that is what is creating the multiverse and creating this exopolitical dimension that we're experiencing now. In fact, in the third dimension as Earthlings, each of us has a holographic fragment. And this is all science, I'm saying, not belief. And I'll show why as we go through the slideshow. But a holographic fragment of God within us, that's called our soul. And we now know this from over 7,000 cases of hypnotic regression of memories of the interlife. So we can say that it's a laboratory protocol and replicable results, which is a scientific method. So therefore it is scientifically derived knowledge, so therefore it is not belief, but it is within the realm of science that we are God. So if you're prepared to own that holographically we are God, because the whole is in every part of the hologram within you, then scientifically I'm happy to report that you are God. We also have time science, and that is our third dimensional ecology. It's a time-space hologram. And it was discovered in DARPA's Project Pegasus that the time-space hologram is an artificial environment created by a higher intelligence. We're actually inside a hologram that was created by a higher intelligence that has limits. Guess who created that higher intelligence? Well, we participated. So we created in the hologram that we're in, collectively. And we're creating the multiverse that we're in at the collective level. These are all scientific truths. And timelines, there's an infinite number of timelines in this time-space hologram, and the timelines are like lanes in a multi-lane highway, and they can be more or less benign or catastrophic. And it's possible for our timelines to shift. And that's why, for example, you know, you can have predictions or chronovisor probes of global coastal events in the year 2013 of a global coastal event of Washington, D.C., the Supreme Court building under 100 feet of brackish water, and it's 2013, and the Washington, D.C. is not under 100 feet of brackish water, which the prophet Edgar Casey predicted, which a 1971 DARPA chronovisor, it's a time travel device, it's like almost a television or a three-dimensional holographic device for going to any point in time-space, A, B, C, D in time-space, that point. And why we're in 2013 and the catastrophe hasn't happened, because we shifted timelines. So it's possible to shift timelines. In other words, the future is not deterministic. We can actually start shifting positive thoughts, and by 2025, we'll be on paradise on earth, which is what I'm projecting. So the timeline that I'm looking at is 2013 to 2025 is a transition to paradise on earth. That's when we land paradise on earth. And there's some objective evidence that shows that. We're kind of just going through a transition now, while you know, all the the false flaggers just kind of go through place. The dimensional ecology hypothesis. What it is, it holds that we Earthlings live in a dimensional ecology of intelligence that encompasses extraterrestrials in parallel dimensions and universes, souls in the afterlife dimensions, and spiritual beings in the spiritual dimensions, and source in the multiverse, or all that is. And the spiritual dimensions ecology hypothesis can be supported and tested through the scientific method and the law of evidence, using witness, documentary, and experimental evidence. And parallel realities, universes, and dimensions in the multiverse vary and consist of bounded ranges and frequencies of energies. Dimensions can contain diverse levels of consciousness and life unique to that dimension, and that promote the evolution of consciousness across dimensions. This is a photograph by a colleague of mine, and that's from January 16, 2002, and those are hyperdimensional extraterrestrials creating their own portal and landing on a U.S. Senate building on July 16, 2002. The interdimensional extraterrestrials land at will on the U.S. Capitol, over the Obama U.S. White House. They kind of play with it, and we'll see they do reenactments of the famous flyover of the U.S. Capitol on July 26, 1952. Which is the anniversary of the Cuban Revolution. So I'm half Cuban anyway. Now, teleportation and telepathy are kind of the prime communication and transportation modes in the dimensional ecology, and both are non-local. Teleportation is the method by which entities from souls, say, which a soul teleports from the interdimensional portal in the afterlife or the interlife into this third dimension. Say if it's chosen to come into a life here on Earth, it teleports from an interdimensional portal into this third dimension here about 3 months prior to the birth, that it's giving birth, and it comes into the coordinates, the time-space coordinates, right beside the mother, and lies for about 3 months prior to the birth, just right next to the mother's womb, and embeds itself then into the fetus, preparing for the birth process. That's in a regular birth. We'll show an example later on where there are a number of where a certain species of gray ETs has taken on the task of embedding human souls into specific mothers where the human soul has a particular destiny. And so this is where a lot of the current human religions, which base themselves on texts and on tradition, get it generally right that we have reincarnation or an afterlife, but as to scientific detail, they are in error. So everybody's walking around confused and kind of Tower of Babel because they really don't know what's going on. And it's a scientific process. It's just, this is like, it's regular, you know? It's just, we recycle through this dimension. It's a regular thing. It's like going to Disneyland. And it's very, very hyper-organized on this side and on that side. It may seem like it's disorganized, but that's part of the process because they make us forget. Now, and so part of this effort, this is the age of the integration of science and religion. So part of this effort and part of this presentation is to show how science will begin to tweak a lot of what religion is saying so that we begin to get a straight story as to what the process is and lessen a lot of the confusion and hopefully with that a lot of the unnecessary strife and confusion that comes with the, no, my God is better than your God and I go to a different place, because let me assure you, everyone goes to the same place. And so teleportation and time travel within and between dimensions occur naturally when you're in the process of incarnating into a body in a dimension, which everybody does, and you incarnate as humans on this dimension. You can incarnate as extraterrestrials on some other planet. You can incarnate into a fish planet where they have intelligent fish, a bird planet. You can incarnate into a reptilian planet. You can incarnate, you know, as an insectoid. I mean, there are all sorts of formats by which intelligent life has evolved. We have created a wondrous multiverse. Enjoy it. Free your mind. So, this is why we came up with the dimension-based model of the dimensional ecology. And the dimension-based model is that the most fundamental criterion by which intelligent civilizations can be described is the dimension in which they are based, that they're from. They'll say, well, I'm a 5th dimension, Arcturian. Or I'm a 7th dimension, Pleiadian. And that means something because they're characteristics of that dimension. Or I'm a 3rd dimension, Earthian. And the 3rd dimension is characterized by time and space. That's what we come here to learn, time and space. So I guess we learn a lot of patience here because patience cannot function independently of time. We're sort of at the entry level. That's what our souls come here to really learn. because we are in a school for souls, and eventually we'll be creating our own universes inside this multiverse. This is what this scientific exercise, in fact, shows us. It validates all of the traditional mystical assertions. However, in this era of the integration of spirituality and science, we are coming within the hallowed walls of academia to say, aside scientific canon, it is a multidimensional universe, and yes, you can teach that consciousness doth in fact survive bodily death. And that's why we founded Exo University, exouniversity.org, because I prepared an entire curriculum on exopolitics from one of the colleges in the university system in British Columbia. At their request, I met with the chairman of the department, the academic heads, I presented it to them, and they said, "You're 10 years ahead of your time, we can't do that." And I saw I was facing their fears, i.e. we're in this transitional time. They'll lose their jobs. Why? Because they as consciousnesses are too fear-based to embrace this new science. They didn't put in the years of studying parapsychology and exopolitics. But the closest thing that I could find in my studies was the Kardashev scale, which Dr. Michio Kaku has popularized, which says that the scale of the civilization is tied to how they consume energy. Are they consuming their own nest like we are, you know, through petroleum, or are they using solar power, renewables? Are they going into quantum access energies like teleportation and zero-point energy? They go 0 scale, 1 scale, like, you know, zero type civilization, 1, 2, 3. Whereas 0 type civilizations, most 0 type civilizations self-destruct before they get to 1, which is sort of solar system based. And that's our big question: are we going to self-destruct or not? My answer is no, we're not. We're going to get to a 1, and we're going to have paradise on earth by 2025. And that's the trajectory that we're on. And that by 2025, concepts like the dimension-based typology of intelligent civilizations will be commonplace and taught in universities, taught in high schools, and taught in elementary schools, and we'll have whole new textbooks where you'll learn what's really happening. And we're in that transition now. But we have to stand up. We have to act up. There's that whole thing from the 70s when the AIDS, you know, first started taking people away. And the thing was act up. Silence equals death. And I really think that. Silence equals death. So we have to be vocal. We have to be in the streets. I was saying last night, it's time for an American spring. We've had the Arab Spring. It's time for an American spring. Why was there nobody in Boston in the middle of that thing standing up and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this is a false flag. This is a false flag. This is a false flag." You know, going up and getting in front of the CNN camera and saying, "This is a false flag." You know, it's easy enough to do. Anyway, sorry about the political. You get caught up. I'm a lawyer from Yale, lost my letters. Crazy guy. Okay. The dimension-based typology of intelligent civilizations. We're talking about third dimension intelligent civilizations. That's people like us in the civilizations in time and space. And that is from the Hubble Deep Space Telescope. Each one of those little clusters is a galaxy. We're in the Milky Way galaxy. Each one of those is filled with deep space, time space, third dimension civilizations like us. entry-level, I call ourselves entry-level civilizations. Then there are solar system civilizations, deep space that we talked about. They're hyperdimensional civilizations, and within that, there are many gradations: fourth, fifth, sixth, ninth dimension. It goes up, and it's a complex system. We won't get into it here, but I'll show you examples. Then we have intelligent civilizations, governance authorities. You know, like you have the municipal, the state governments, the federal governments. You have the beginnings of planetary government with the UN. Forget that it's controlled by the New World Order. That's temporary. Okay. In the same way, life-bearing planets in various dimensions, once they get out of their zero status, you know, confusion, they come into planetary governance networks. It's very organized out there. You think, you know, in the same way that you can't build a building in a city without going in and getting building permission, you know, to building code and everything, you can't willy-nilly like inhabit a planet or take over a planet. I mean, there are controls. Life-bearing planets are cultivated. We are a cultivated planet. We were actually cultivated by a consortium of the Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Sirians, and we were initially created, probably according to the best information, as 12-strand light beings in the third dimension, which is quite an accomplishment, because we've suffered a lot of interventions from predatory extraterrestrials. One of the major interventions was from the Anunnaki, somewhere between 450,000 to 280,000 years ago. Laura Eisenhower, my colleague, she'll be speaking right after me. She and I were at Adam's Calendar in South Africa, which was where one of the places where the Anunnaki extraterrestrials came in about 280,000 years ago. Using sound techniques, they brought our strand DNA down to two-stranded DNA, shrunk our consciousness, brought us down into slave status. Because the interdimensional portal at the core of our universe is now, you know, through the harmonic convergence in 2012, is now broadcasting waves of unity consciousness. We are now, and they're crystal kids coming in and indigos. We're all here in this room, probably early indigos. Some of us are crystal kids, you know, just depending on your generation. We're now moving up, building up our own DNA up from 2 to 4 to 6, you know, just individually by doing the work. So this is how, from the inside out, we are liberating ourselves and freeing our collective mind from the Anunnaki occupation. We'll go in now just briefly to examine, this is just an example, a case study of a third dimensional solar system civilization other than our own. And we're going to take a case study of the solar system, third dimension solar system civilization in our own solar system here on our nearest planetary neighbor, Mars. Before 9500 BC, in which there was a solar system catastrophe in which a fragment of the supernova Vela came into our solar system and destroyed a large part of the Martian ecology, surface ecology, and even destroyed our great maritime civilization known as Atlantis. Earth and Mars had a common interplanetary society that was ruled by the Egyptian pharaohs, who were the direct linear descendants of the Anunnaki interlopers, settlers, starting 280,000 years ago. And that's why you had pyramidal cultures on Earth and pyramidal cultures on Mars. And on Mars now, there are various factions that are living there. There's a human faction, a human civilization living under the surface of Mars that are genetic cousins, that are survivors from the 9500 BC catastrophe, that were part of the interplanetary civilization there. And then there are various other humanoid cultures, they're kind of a gray culture that live on the surface, and they're animals. Since there's no flora, no vegetation on Mars, the Martian animals live by feeding off each other, so it's a carnivorous. And you'll see animals there that you haven't seen on Earth. They're all kind of reptilian-based dinosaurs. We'll have only a sample here. My colleague, Andy Bashag, was speaking on Saturday. He may be showing more, and you can go to projectmars.net and see a full sample of life on Mars. This is just the beginnings. This is at an air base in New Jersey, where in the early 1970s, my colleague Andy Bashag of the Mars Anomaly Research Society, who's a major whistleblower in many, many ways, and it's so appropriate having this conference for your mind here in the Quaker Meeting Hall. I'll explain in a moment. Met 3 Martian astronauts at Curtiss Wright Air Force Base in 1971 in the company of his father, while they were on a liaison mission with the U.S. Defense Department in 1971. So this is part of the routine liaison missions between the Martian human civilization living under the surface of the Earth, of the Mars, and ours, where they set up a common defense cordon between Earth and Mars after there was an overflight of the U.S. Capitol by Interdimensionals in 1952, which the U.S. Defense Department assumed was hostile Orion Grays. There's something of an exopolitical war going on between the Draco Reptilians and the Orion Grays, who've been attempting a takeover of this quadrant of the galaxy. And according to a 1964 U.S. intelligence report, the Orion Grays, acting as a front for the Draco Reptilians, had Earth and Mars timeline for takeover between 2000 and 2050. And you can look at Nazism, for example, and now friendly fascism as a rollout of the Orion Gray Draco Reptilian takeover, which is actually taking place in the 4th dimension. So that's part of the Star Wars scenario that is taking on. And the Galactic fleet, the upper dimensional ethical human galactic fleet of the Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, etc., who created us, who have a vested interest in us, are the ones that are maintaining the vibe here to kind of keep us liberated within certain planetary ethics of no direct intervention. But you can go to exopolitics.com, and on the right side you see a link that says Galactic Governance. You can go there and you can follow how all these galactic battles are happening at exopolitics.com if you want to follow it at that kind of Star Wars level. This is a photo of 2 of the whistleblowers that have come forward. Andrew Bashag, who will be speaking here on Saturday, is on, I guess, your left. And Bernard Mendez is right here. Now, what's interesting about Andy there was a member of the audience who came up to me at lunch and said, you know, I have a close connection to George Washington, and I want to ask you a question. It's an exopolitical question. Do you believe that the spiritual beings that appeared to Washington and told him that he was going to be the father of the country, do you believe that they were extraterrestrials or spiritual beings? And so I said, well, you're going to meet that spiritual being on Saturday. It was Andy Bishago that talked to George Washington. He said, what? Yeah. What it was is that Project Pegasus was using children to do chronovisor, time travel. And chronovisor is like, it puts you there in like a virtual form. So it's like I would appear here, and I would appear like a virtual form, like in a hologram. So they sent Andy and some of the kids in hologram form to George Washington and told him to do some military maneuvers which helped him win the war, and that he was going to be the future president of the country. And Washington says, what are you lads? Are you angels? And no, it was Andy Bishago and the kids from Project Pegasus. So I told the gentleman, I think he's here, that no, he's going to meet the angel that Washington actually met on Saturday, and that was Andy Bishago. So I thought, that is how crucial and how contemporary and how leading edge the Free Your Mind Congress is, that in the Quaker Meeting House, across the street from the Betsy Ross house, the angel that spoke to George Washington and told him he's going to be the founding father of the United States is actually giving a talk at Free Your Mind. These are two of the non-whistleblowers from the time travel program, from the CIA time travel. The ones who are still walking on the dark side. The one on the left needs no introduction. The one on the right is Regina Dugan, and she was Barack Obama's first head of DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, the first woman head of DARPA. Andy thinks that she showed up incognito at one of his lectures, so we're hoping that she'll dance over to the light. Laura Eisenhower, who'll be speaking right after me, was the subject of an attempted recruitment to go to the Mars colony, which Laura refused, and she can speak to that. These are two more Mars whistleblowers who have come forward. Arthur Neumann. They're showing his diplomatic passport, his Department of Energy passport. Official government went to Mars, and as did Michael Relf. They're shown with his wife, who wrote the two books with him. Michael he says that when you go to Mars, he was there as part of the permanent security staff from 1976 to 1996, and he was sent there for those 20 years, and then when he was sent back, the age regressed him to the date that he left using time travel technology. He served out the remainder of his term to the armed forces and was discharged in 1982. So that if you look at his paperwork, it looks normal. And that's how they hide these special projects, is using time niches. They hide these special projects in time, and that's why the civilians can't find them. And you can ask, why do they have these strategic, why Mars? Well, why Guam? Why the Philippines? Why Puerto Rico? Why Cuba? The Manifest Destiny, remember that? And that's how the United States grows, because the United States, you know, Alaska purchased, Louisiana purchased, Spanish American War, got Puerto Rico, the Cubans said, no, man. Fidel Castro used to come to my grandmother's house for Sunday dinner, so he was a bit of a wild man. He did not want to be absorbed by the Yankees. But anyway, Mars is, think of Mars as the 51st state. And so the strategy of establishing a Mars colony using the teleportation and time travel project, which they've started now for 40 years, is to have settlers on Mars, because that's what you have. If you establish settlers there, under international law and space law, you can claim the planet for your own. And that's basically what the United States is doing, and circumventing the Moon Treaty, which is why it has not signed the Moon Treaty, and why it's basically walking away from the UN, 1967 UN Outer Space Treaty. It's basically taking over Mars. And this is against the wishes, I think, of the Martian human civilization. So we at the Mars Anomaly Research Society say Mars is for the Martians, and we'll be bringing forth a Mars Protection Treaty on that score. And people who want to can go to our Facebook page, it's called Mars Anomaly Research Society. There are a whole number of new announcements there. There are photographs of these settlements of U.S. Rangers there, U.S. troops, male and female settlements. Just think of Mars as the secret U.S. 51st state. So when you see Mars bars, you know, or Mom Needs Mars, it's all part of that brainwashing. I think that Ben would really kind of dig that one. I even had, that's my book, Exopolitics. I even had my own experience, which is why I really give a lot of credence to these Mars whistleblowers. And in 1971, I was general counsel of the Environmental Protection Administration in New York City. One of the jobs that I had was to speak publicly in New York about the environment. I was invited to speak. I was in the, in the newspaper, New York Post a lot, and newspapers a great deal. And so I got this invitation to go to this group. I said, sure, and got in the car. It was this guy in a suit. Did not seem like a student and a housewife, which was most of the environment groups where we drove a long time. I was down in Washington, D.C., came to this office room, and there were 50 guys there in suits, right, looking at me. And I knew that they were not environmentalists. They looked like spooks, and they were 50 employees of the Central Intelligence Agency in DARPA. And they had copies of my book, Exopolitics, that had been time traveled. The CIA had gone into the future, had gotten a copy of my book, Exopolitics, which was published in 2005, which I'd written in 1999 in Vancouver, Canada, put on the internet for free in the year 2000 to kind of seed the new paradigm, and then published it in 2005. And they brought it back to 1971. We have 3 witnesses. Sorry, I hit something. And they had a copy of my book back there, and all 50 of them hadn't been briefed on me, and they were looking at me, and I had double vision. I knew that something, cognitive dissonance. So I just gave my standard stump speech, and they were like smirking at me, and at the end they give me a big applause, give me a thing. And so I call it time travel surveillance. And you can go to exopolitics.com, hit on the link on the right-hand menu that says time travel and teleportation, go to an article that's time travel and political control. I wrote it, it was published initially in Veritas magazine in Australia, and it's how the CIA uses time travel for political control. The entity known as Barack Hussein Obama, which is a complete Manchurian candidate, no relation to a Kenyan civil servant who they assassinated in 1982 named Barack Hussein Obama, no relation whatsoever. They pre-identified him by a time travel in 1971, 30 years in advance. And he turned out to be the son of Stanley N. Dunham, who was a CIA operative working for CIA undercover of AID in Jakarta, Indonesia at the time. He's from third generation CIA family. He's been trained as a CIA op since the age of 10 in this job. It's completely, and so time travel is how they've been controlling us. So just go there. Okay, now very quickly, because I've only got 15 minutes. This is Mars. That's Mars again. Remember that famous photo that they released at the beginning of 2008? That looks like a statue, right? Okay, can people see that? It looks like it has arms. That is a statue on Mars. How would a statue get on Mars? It's from the pre-cataclysm, pre-9500. Now, this will be a more difficult. This is actually from the same photo, PIA 10-14. This is a Martian humanoid leaning on a rock. See, there's a rock enclosure. The Martian is facing away from the camera. He's kind of a gray. There's his head, there's his back, and there's his two legs. He's kind of kneeling on the ground, and his arms are on the rock enclosure. Can people grok that at all? Yeah? Yeah, that's a picture of a Martian on the surface of Mars. And that's from NASA photo PIA 10-14. That's an extraterrestrial. And next week, on February 29th, in Washington, D.C., at the National Press Club, they're briefing 5 congressmen, including Senator Mike Gravel, on extraterrestrials. The organizer, Steve Bassett, who I worked with in 2003 forward to organize this, prohibited the showing of these photographs and iced us out and prohibited us from showing anything about life on Mars or any of the whistleblowers from Mars. So even within our own movement, there are gatekeepers. Isn't that amazing? I wrote to Senator Gravel, and he was amazed because he and I were on a Press TV panel today. TV panel on Iran television together, talking about 9/11, okay? And we can't talk in the United States about a US program of life on Mars. I just wanted you to know of the active gatekeeping that's ongoing in this area. This is what we call a scorpion man. You see, it's a hybrid of a, see the scorpion? And see kind of the human head? I'm going through these quickly because I'm sort of... This is our Mars logo. And this is one of the large dinosaur-like creatures that exist on Mars. This has been posited for the Loch Ness Monster here. See, they didn't have a KT extinction event on Mars where all the dinosaurs were extincted. And so you have these landlocked dinosaurs, kind of creatures, running around on the surface of Mars. You see the large body, long neck, and the head here. So we adopted that as our mascot. And you can go to projectmars.net and see all the animals. And here's our collection. And so, by the law of evidence, to make it legal, it is more probable than not that Mars is an inhabited planet with intelligent life and with animal life. Now, let's go to hyperdimensional civilizations. I'm not sure if you can see that. Can you see sort of a spectrum of light there? No, it didn't come across. Well, sorry. This is where my wife, Jerry, she's a psychic and a psychotherapist in Vancouver. And this is Marianne Dridvald. She's a very famous Buddhist painter who paints the Dalai Lama, and he's done all kinds of stuff. And John Kelly, we went out to a beach in Vancouver and we just called in the interdimensional craft, and they came in and they were vibrating with our thoughts, you know. Stephen Greer just came out with a movie a few nights ago, and he does it, you know, with his great things. Well, you can go out at night and just do it on your own. I mean, it's not a big deal. And so this is just an example of bringing in intelligent civilizations who are from other dimensions, who then come in and you can communicate with interdimensionally. These are other examples that we photographed at the Iseti Ranch in Mount Adams, and they take on archetypal formats. And hyperdimensional intelligent civilizations are based in dimensional universes parallel or encompassing our own and maybe technologically advanced form, and use a technologically advanced form in our transport when entering our dimension. You know, they create their own wormholes and they come in, and their transports are usually living. They're living entities. You know, where they're thought they communicate with their transports. This is just another example at the Iseti Ranch where we held a laughter meditation in the lecture hall there. We all just started laughing, and calling in. And this is from a videotape of where the interdimensional craft started coming in. Earlier that evening, we had stood in a circle of about 200 people right in front of Mount Adams, and we called in a craft that came in over my left shoulder. It was about a half a kilometer wide, and it communicated to us telepathically. It communicated to me, and I checked it with others. Well, tonight you may be coming up into the craft. It was wild. It was pretty awesome. All of this videotape. These are some interdimensional beings that were photographed by Khan, a Japanese monk, at Mount Adams. This is an interdimensional feline being. She's about 10 feet tall. I.e., intelligence does not have the humanoid form. The human form is predominant in the Milky Way galaxy, but it can take advanced felines, insectoid, reptilian, silicon-based. We just happen to be men and women, human, or goddesses and gods. And this is a multidimensional female being, a Pleiadian, that again was photographed. Very much of a Marian kind of format. These are the spiritual dimensions, and there are a lot of ways that we can prove and communicate with the afterlife, and now we can do so with technological means, including cell phones, video, and computers. There's a site that you can go to which has computer conversations with entities in the afterlife. This is Dr. Ian Stevenson, University of Virginia Medical School, with rigorous studies on reincarnation, near-death experiences, life between lives. We have over 7,000 cases of hypnotic regression, of the memories of the interlife. When a person passes over, and that is leaves their body, and then teleports through the interdimensional portal between this dimension and the dimension of the interlife, there are three basic procedures which happen. That of envelopment, and that is your guides meet you there with a kind of enveloping you with a great deal of ore to kind of cushion your transition. Or there's a focus effect where it's like kind of like super acupuncture. This is to aid, because this is such a dense experience here. Or where there's emergency treatment for people who've had a traumatic death, either in a war or an accident or a murder. You know, so you're well taken care of. And there are groups, i.e. it's very organized between lives. And you can be leading right now 2 or 3 multiple lives at the same time. In other words, I can be Alfred on Earth, and I can be Mary in da-da-da. You know, it doesn't. The process of life, the creation of souls, they talk about it as though God, or the source, is like a sea of light, and each of our individual souls are like an egg of light. In other words, a holographic fragment of this whole of light. And at death, you sort of float above the body, entry through the spiritual dimension, through the tunnel. Your guide and the soul's family are present in a normal, if there's a traumatic, there's an orientation period of life review, and then you go to the interlife, and then when you go to choose a next life, there's a lot of discussion about what you want, and it's highly technologized. You'll have like a bunch of monitors, and you can sample a bunch of lives. You know, do I want this one? I'll sample this one, that, and the other one. See, we're in a virtual experience right now. We're in a virtual experience that somebody has on a monitor someplace. That's how relative it is. There's a rehearsal period, so we all learn how to recognize each other inside the incarnation when there are crucial times. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to do this now. And they say, yes, I have there's an extensive file on extraterrestrial lives. We are on a planet of suffering and not a planet of pleasure. Earth is the planet of suffering. We've come to a planet of suffering. This is a rough planet we're in. Okay? That's the e-ticket that we've chosen. This life. So relax and enjoy it. You can go to exopolitics.com and see all of the interviews. This is Gray T's aboard a ship, Suzanne Hansen. She first went aboard a ship as an 8-year-old child. She met the soul of her future son there. Fast forward, she was married, she was pregnant, she was brought up. She was placed on a gurney. They brought the soul over. A special Gray came in, that's her on the gurney, and he implanted the soul into and embedded the soul into the womb of her son. They told her about the life of her son. He's a lawyer now, about 30 years old in New Zealand, and he's about to start doing his prophesized work. And these are just some points about that exopolitics is the proper science for the new typology. Dimensionality appears to be the key concept for understanding extraterrestrial civilizations, human consciousness. There's a Martian civilization transformation of human social structures is going to be a key thing coming up to allow all of this to happen. Whistleblower and eyewitnesses have to be given all of the support now. And because they're under tremendous stress, even within our own ranks, there are people that are trying to undercut It's a disgrace in Washington, D.C., what's happening on the 29th. They have 40 researchers, all of whom are undercutting all of the whistleblowers and not one single whistleblower. That's how they're doing it. There's a new typology coming up. We, Homo sapiens, we're a unique creation. We're actually 12-strand DNA light beings. We're actually light beings in the third dimension. And the dimensional ecology, the power of soul, where we have enormous soul power. We're part of the intelligent civilizations of souls. We should be looking at our lives from an exopolitical point of view. There are different soul types. The gray ETs are involved. This education about this is going to be crucial, bringing it into the school systems. Working with the religions and how are they going to get off their dogmatic ways when they're wrong about things. You know, here, the Christians in the Catholic Church let go of suppressed reincarnation around 325 AD for political purposes so they could get more donations. You know, where's that go? How's that going to change? Academic science prohibits teaching about life after death. How are we going to change that? Cultural and religious conflicts, all of the wars which the false flags operate about. So, this is just a beginning taste of the work of dimensions, ecology of the multiverse. Thank you very much.